So welcome, Emily, to chapter 6, the chapter of Mary Magdalene's journey to Greece. And like I said, you can just unmute yourselves. As you want to speak and ask questions. I just didn't want a lot of background noise as I'm presenting. Here comes Mary Jean. Okay. So I also want to say to you that in addition to posting this recording on the Facebook group page, and I've said this before, but I've uploaded a bunch of the recordings to YouTube. So and I'm going to put that YouTube link like on my website and different places, send it out so you can find it, just so you can find everything together. Because I know people have been asking me, they missed the live and they wanted the recording. And it's just, I'm having a hard time keeping up with sending it out to everyone who's been asking. And I just got back, I was away. So you're going to be able to look there too, just so we have all these conversations all together. You can just go to it at any point. So I just want to go back. Last month was such a powerful conversation with Queen of Sheba and all the information that came through. And I feel that at the end of this, just before you guys came in, that I will be doing maybe possibly a little transmission. I just heard something quickly at the end. Somebody would like to speak. I don't know if it was Mary Magdalene speaking. I think it was. But I just want to recap, just so you remember, and for those of you who weren't there or maybe missed it, I never refer to her as Miriam because she never uses that name to me, but I know in the story, she's saying that her birth name she was called Miriam. I just know her as the Magdalene. But if you remember, she went to the Temple Mount, and she shared with me that was Mount Carmel, and that she spent time on that mountain in preparation, and she was healing from the passing of her father and really contemplating her mission on earth, what was calling to her, what she knew at some level she was being called to do, and just to really connect with Mother, Source, the Mother energies. And those energies are so powerful there on Mount Carmel. So she came down from that mountain, and she talks about, in the previous chapter, she talks about coming down from the mountain, and there was a village, maybe it was Magdala, I'm not sure, that was near the base of the mountain. And there were merchants there, and there was like a whole market happening, and she spoke with some merchants, and then when she starts to really talk about her knowledge of herbs and oils and how impressed they were with her knowledge. So this is her, she's introducing herself, even though we have the history, the scholarly knowledge of her, she's telling us who she is, and that she had this knowledge, and she was proud of it and happy to share and to speak about her knowledge and her, and that she's traveled. So she's sharing this with these merchants who are, and so now this is my learning, doing this work with you and I did a little bit years ago, but so these merchants travel, there were trade routes, from the area where they lived, there were trade routes, and they journeyed to Greece and into other areas, into Egypt, but there were these trade routes. So these merchants traveled these trade routes, and is my understanding from the story that she transmitted to me. And she invited them at the end of last chapter to join her, that she knew her mission, and she's not telling us what her mission is, what her work is. She's just alluding to it. She knows now. She knows, she mentioned spikenard, that it's important that she has spikenard, and that she's going to travel, and she knows it's best to not be traveling alone. And she has these merchants who have a wagon, so she doesn't have to carry her food and clothing. and she has protection. So they travel with her back to Qumran, and she sees her family so she can say goodbye to them. And they're all, and I'm just amazed. I mean, you guys can all share like because the travel that it was, I mean, they were sad to see her go, but the travel that was accepted, I mean, this is not hopping on a plane. This is this journey with these merchants she doesn't know. And she talks about, and she never really explains much about those little girls that go with her, except that they too wanted to follow the work of the priestess. And so she alludes to, we know that there's something that's going to be happening with her work as a priestess. And so these young girls, and she takes them with, and I don't know how old they were, but they were young enough to cry and miss their mom. So she shares all that with us, and how the family comes and to say goodbye, and they give her gifts. And I love that she shares with us how much she loves figs. I actually started eating figs since I transmitted this story, because I was like, oh, she really likes figs. And I remember the first time I was going to speak on the story, the book, and do a transmission, I thought, oh, I'll bring figs, to share with the group. And I started, I was like, oh, these are pretty good. I really like these figs. So, but just she shares this sense of her as a human being, and that she talks about how much she likes to eat. She ate a lot. She said, I ate well, but she did not eat meat. And she says, and she talks about how the merchants had dried meat. I think she calls it meat, dried meat and such, in packets. But she said never has, and we kind of know that about the Essenes, but she's stating it very clearly. So this is, now we're into chapter 6, and she's beginning this journey. And I just wanted to speak to that from page 81, the fact that she doesn't eat meat, because this was my guidance when I first, years ago, when they first asked me to be an emissary of light before I worked with Mary Magdalene, and they asked me not to eat meat. They asked me not to eat meat or or animal byproducts as part of my work as a light worker. And I do my best as a vegan, but I definitely don't eat meat. But she says, I held tight to these values, as I knew that the light body sought no sustenance but the light within. And although I ate often and well at times, I knew that the density of the flesh burdened the heart and created a denser form, not one that would enliven. And often people will say to me, why don't you eat meat? And people just who don't really know me well, and I don't always go into it, but it's a vibration. It's a vibration, and as all of us are light workers and carry this or embodying this very high vibration, we probably, all of us, have been drawn to just eat lighter, to eat of plants and high vibration foods. So I love that she just plants these seeds of wisdom for us to choose as we feel ready. But I love when she says this. And anybody at any point, I'm just going to go through the story and the parts that I really felt that were important to share or to give, to highlight and give more information on. So you just unmute yourselves and speak up. So then and I went back through the chapter and I couldn't find that I had actually written it. So I guess she just told me this. She said to me, and we began the journey and we took the Turkish route. That's what she said to me. We took the Turkish route. And so then I preparing for this, I've been Googling the Turkish route. So there was no Turkey in the times of Jesus. The country of Turkey did not exist, but the Turks did. They refer to the Turks. And so I assume maybe in that time period that, the Turkish route was, obviously going to bring her up through that area that is now Turkey. But this is when I found all those trade routes. So if you Google, and I'm gonna see how this works. I'm gonna try to share my screen. Oh, wait, first I gotta go down. I gotta pull it up. Can you guys see that? The map? Okay. So, okay, so she's coming. I mean, here's Jerusalem. Like Qumran is not being shown on that map, the map. It's further down. But and you just think about them traveling like this. And she describes, because there is a route called, oh, now I'm going blank, but it goes along the sea, and the via something with an M is connected to the sea, and kind of where this arrow is, where this red arrow, I think that is that route. This is actually the best map, the most clear map I could find, and it's the map of when he traveled to preach after after the times of Jesus. But she says no, they walked through the mountains and plains. They slept in caves. She talks about the fires to warm the food, and they went up into the mountains, and then they came down into the plains, into the valleys. And I'm so I have no idea of geography and all of that. And I was thinking to myself, really, I think of all of it as desert, and it's not, and this whole area. And when I researched, there was a King's Highway, and then there was another one called the Ridge Route. And they both went up through the mountains. Of course, none of them talked about actually going up into, so this area. So you see where Ephesus is and Antioch, and like this area is modern day Turkey. Maybe, I might not be off a little bit, but this area. So she went from all the way up here, and I'm like, I was actually having a little conversation. I was like, well, how come you didn't do what St. Paul did and just go from down here and take a ship across? But I don't know. Who knows what the times were, if there were no ships available, or, but she was very adamant that she went up. They went through the area of what's now Turkey, and then they took a ship to Crete. So here's Crete. So, and here's Athens. So really, I also said, well, you could have gone straight to Athens. Again, maybe there was no way to go directly to Athens. They had to go to Crete. But she talks about Crete and waiting for a sailing vessel and preparation. She doesn't ever really tells me. I mean, I could ask her now, but there was also the significance of the Isle of Crete and the priestesses that lived there who followed Aphrodite. And the Isle of Crete was one of the last remaining areas, last stand of those who worshiped the Divine Mother. As it became more patriarchal, Crete was one of those areas that still held on to the Divine Mother and those teachings. And she had a very special relationship with this high priestess. She alludes to it in this chapter. She just speaks about her wisdom and her knowledge. She also had, even though Mary Magdalene seemed to have knowledge of caves and tunnel structures in Athens, the high priestess gave her more information about where to go. And she seemed to be a guide for her in helping her with her mission. So that might have been part of the significance of her traveling from this whole area down to Crete. And maybe she didn't know. Maybe she, like all of us, when we're being sent on our missions to places and we go, what do we do now? I don't know why I'm here. Maybe they just told her, maybe she was guided to just go. And then they said, go to Crete, and she didn't know why, but then she meets the high priestess. Not everything was always revealed to her. It was, and she talks about that often throughout the story of her need to trust and have faith. And so, okay. So I just wanted you to have a sense of all of that, of where she was. And I also want you to take note of Cyprus, because she talks about Cyprus later. Cyprus is important, but here's Athens. And I also just want to say Ephesus is, I know Ephesus is in Turkey because I know people who've gone there and who've, they talk about that was the final resting place of Mother Mary, Jesus's mother. Supposedly that, that's where she, that's where she ended her life, in Ephesus. And I will share with you, all of you, that Antioch. So Antioch became the early Christian church, the early Christian teachings. There were a lot of Jewish in the area of Turkey, is what I found in my research. Antioch became the early Christian, or the Gnostic, or before it was a church, very important area. And in that lifetime, I wasn't planning on saying this, but I feel like I should, as Veronica, which they tell me I was Veronica, and this is why I have the story. Before I transmitted the story, I had to go through, as all of us, a lot of clearing of past lifetimes, and that lifetime I had to heal. And I was stoned in Antioch. I died in Antioch. Veronica did. So, and I had a vision of it all, and I'm sure it's just a little bit emotional, but it was all cleared prior to me being able to transmit the story. So some of you might also feel that connection to these areas. If, as we walked as Magdalenes, we walked with the Magdalene. You might have been here, you might have been in Greece. I mean, there were so many areas that she was in. But okay. So let me stop the share. Make you guys bigger so I can see you all. Does anybody have any comments or anything they want to share with that, or memories, or more information about the area? No?
Mary, I did want to ask you, did you have a sense of why you were stoned? Because you were Jewish and it was becoming Christian?
No, it was because of the teachings I was sharing. I was sharing these same teachings. I was continuing to share the work of Yeshua and Mary Magdalene, but they were the inner teachings. They were not what the patriarchal system. Yeah, Judaism, I suppose. I don't even know if I feel that in that lifetime I actually was Greek, and I traveled to Egypt. I have a lot of I've had a lot of memories of being in Greece prior to this. So I might have even lived on Crete. I might have been where I was, because I know I was with other priestesses. So I don't know if I was Jew, but I know it was for the teaching, for sharing these teachings. So yeah. So I just thought I'd share that with you guys. Okay. So the Isle of Crete, the followers of the goddess Aphrodite. And okay, so I wanted to talk about this, because one day we're all going to go. So, right, we all have, now we have someplace, the list is getting longer. So in the story she transmitted to me, she said, and the high priestess talked about high on the mountaintop, or I knew of high on the mountaintop on Athens, there was a system of a tapestry of tunnels. How'd she call it? There were cave structures, the loud entrance into a tapestry of tunnels where much devotion to the goddess mother occurred. So I thought it was secret knowledge. Maybe, am I going to even be able to find this? But when I searched and researched, and There, I actually watched a show one time, and I wish I could find it again. I don't know if they were talking about the cave sanctuaries of the Acropolis. But they talked about going into these tunnels and like finding all this worship to the goddess. They went deep into the tunnels, and I was like, that's the place, that's the place. And then I lost the show, and I don't remember what the name of it was. But Mary Magdalene does, at different points in this chapter, talk about the Acropolis, the Acropolis. So I've never been to Athens. I don't know, has anyone been there or been to the Acropolis? But you know, apparently at the top, there are what they call state sanctioned. There was state sanctioned worship. So this is, you know, in the times of Mary Magdalene. I don't know what there's now. I'm going to guess there's churches, Christian churches there. But then, so there's natural, what they describe as natural fissures in the rocks. And they were used as sites of worship for the different deities. And that the state religion was at the top. But then there was an ancient pathway, and they found this in 1932, like a terrace that brought you to an area where they found remnants that there was inscriptions of worship on different vases and all of artifacts that they found to Aphrodite and Eros or Eros. So Eros, and who's Eros? Eros is like, as a Roman god, is Cupid, the god of, he's the god of love and sex. So, but he's also supposedly the god of the child of Aphrodite. So that's all. But he's also considered a primordial god. There were all these gods and goddesses in Greece and Rome that had so many lineages and so many stories, which I'm going to break down a little bit, but just so you have like a little bit of the history. So there's these different terraces and layers, or it seems like as you descend down and into the mountain, they keep finding new structures. And then recently they found a structure not in the cave sanctuary of the caves on the Acropolis, but on Crete, they found one to Demeter, the goddess Demeter. So they're constantly finding old places of worship, and they're always in caves and connected to the earth and hidden away, tucked into the tunnel structures. But the one I'm speaking of now, 450 to 430 BC. I mean, ancient sites. They also found sanctuaries that were connected to Aphrodite, Hermes, and Isis from the 1st and 2nd century BCE. So, okay. So in Greece, how would I say it? Like not the priestesses necessarily, but the outer teachings of who Aphrodite was. She's the Greek goddess of love, beauty, pleasure, passion, procreation. She also was considered a warrior goddess, you know, aligned with Athena. You know, they morphed into all these different other goddesses. She was absorbed by Romans as Venus, the goddess of desire and fertility and prosperity. Her symbols are the clamshell. They say that she rose from the clamshell. Her other symbols are a swan, a dove, roses. They're all very similar to other goddesses connected to the mother. And her main centers were in Cyprus. Remember I showed you that island? They say that that's where she was born. Go ahead, Andrea.
Yeah, I was watching Gaia.com. I'm sure everybody knows about that. And I found this interview with Marguerite Rigoglioso. Have you heard of her?
Is she the one who wrote all those books? The goddess, oh yeah, the mother. Did she write a bunch of books? I can't think of the name of the book.
She wrote a bunch of books, and she was talking about how the ritual of I don't know if this is off topic, but it's about Mother Mary, and it's she talked about the ritual of having divine birth and how many different going back to Isis, the time of Isis, and even before that, of how these rituals happened in all these different cultures, where it would be divine gods who would come and impregnate the women, and they would call the womb the sacred womb. It was so interesting, and I thought of you, and I really wanted to try to remember it, so I found it.
Oh yeah, so it's on Gaia. Yeah, yeah, you have to send out what the name of it is on Gaia. You know,
Okay.
yeah, because I would love to watch it.
Yeah, it's really
Yeah,
pretty
that is
amazing.
interesting, and it does tie into what I was eventually going to talk about with Aphrodite. Because I'm giving what I want to just give you for people who have no idea who Aphrodite. I mean, other than you hear of Aphrodite as the goddess of love. You know, just that romanticized. You know, just very commercial almost in these days version of her. But I'm ultimately going to get to how I know her and how Mary Magdalene presents her to me. But I just want you to have this background of who she was said to have been. So they say in the Greek that Aphro is foam and Dite is bright. So she's bright foam. So she came from the foam. Um, she emerged from the foam and danced across the waves to land. Um, and so this is when it gets interesting. So then when they research further back, Aphrodite emerged in Greece from the more ancient cultures of Phoenicia, the goddess Astarte. She was absorbed by, previous to that, from the Semitic goddess Ishtar, right? So we've talked about these goddesses before. And from the Sumerian cult goddess Inanna. So, and they all have very similar, symbols. They're all connected. Well, Ishtar is connected to the star of Ishtar, which is an 8-pointed star. And that's significant. Wait, how come I can't let you in? That's significant in that it's connected to Venus. So because of the 8-year cycle of Venus, it takes 8 years for it to cycle across the sky. And so there's the 8-pointed star. What else did I want to say about that? So is that all I have? Yeah. Okay. So then I'll get into what I have to say about Aphrodite. So who are these priestesses on Crete? And then Mary Magdalene's connecting with them. They do talk about a connection with Isis too, with Ishtar and all of those goddesses. I don't know. Like they kind of, a couple of sources talked about that, but it really resonates with me. Ishtar, Astarte, Inanna, that she came from those cultures and evolved into Aphrodite. They all have the same story, or a similar story of their birth, and what they represent as the divine feminine. But what I would say to you is, working with Mary Magdalene, and when I do the priestess work with her, what she has shared with me is that Aphrodite, and I actually was questioning some of this because they call her the Aphrodite one, and I can definitely hear Aphrodite. It's a much more almost like a Mother Mary voice, like a softer, higher frequency voice. But what she and Mary Magdalene tell me is that in her original form, that she came as part of the ancients from the stars, that she came as a being of light, they were worshipped as gods and goddesses. So this kind of ties in with what you were saying, Andrea, about, and she says we were almost androgynous. We really didn't have a feminine or a male form, but some of us, she said, some of us had more power and strength, and so maybe presented more as more masculine, but really we were androgynous, and we were benevolent. We came to help the earth in her evolution. And she will say to me, you know, they say I came from the clamshell, like you always say. I have a couple of statues here, and I don't know if you can say that she came from the clamshell. And there's her with the clamshell. And she said, no, I didn't come from the clamshell. I'm connected more with the conch, the spiral. She says, this is where I came from. I am the dance. I am the spiral light. I am the rising up. I am the passion-filled life. I am, how else does she describe herself? You know, I'm the Kundalini rising. And I have like a transmission from her, or from Mary Magdalene from this morning. And ultimately, all their voices, and anyone who's however you receive your information, your connection with source, you know, ultimately she fades, or they all will fade into one voice, and it's the voice of the Divine Mother. It's the voice of the feminine. So this is like so again, we're talking about the aspect of Aphrodite as the aspect of, so last month we talked about the Queen of Sheba, the Magda, and that sense, the strong sense of worth and value, and know who you are, and power. And Aphrodite brings the energies of life, of creativity, of passion, and that spiral dance. And I actually went to my own website because years ago, I received a transmission from Melchizedek. You know, I work with the Order of Melchizedek. And this is what he says in connection with Aphrodite. He was talking about the blue rose. The blue rose grew strong upon the plains of Venus. And I was a leader among men at this place in space-time. Many temples to the Venusian Queen of Heaven, the Aphrodite one, were established here on Venus. So, you know, whether he's saying, because we know her as Aphrodite, as Venus, and he's using those words, you know, but he's talking about the Queen of Heaven, the mother, the temple, on Venus, on the planet of Venus. And okay. And this is Melchizedek speaking. So, but he says, I came through this Venusian stargate and landed on the earthly plains to aid rigor and strength to the subhuman forms who were in their infancy in the eons of times past. I extended my hands to each and established centers of learning here, so that the knowledge and wisdom imparted in the temples from which I had come may be shared once again with the newly formed society of mankind. The Order of the Blue Rose was established here in these centers, led by the Aphrodite one. And here is where it gets a little more confusing. He says the Demeter one, as she was known on earth in the days that followed. So is Demeter, when I researched Demeter, I mean, she is ancient. And she's the earth. She's connected with Gaia. They talk about the fact that she's interchangeable with Gaia, and the centers that they found. The center they found on Crete was rebuilt in like 250 BC. It was rebuilt. So the original center was who knows how old. So he's saying Demeter is a form of Aphrodite as well. And he says the Magdalene shining lights they were, heart-centered in their teachings, they carried the lineage of light, the Magdalene structure of light that would advance mankind in the Christed structure. Open in their hearts, they sang and they danced in a unified form. And so I don't know, maybe I should give you the message I received from Aphrodite now, or from Mary Magdalene now. Yeah, I think I will. So this is what Mary Magdalene said to me this morning. That Aphrodite is of the heavenly realms and has entered the time-space continuum to aid humanity in their release, to begin again in the rising up process. She entered as one from the heavenly realms, glowing in nature and fearsome in the sight of those who saw her. The glow was from within the internal mechanisms of the light body, as she was of a strong maternal nature. The light emanated from within her strong heart and beat through her system of light. It enabled her to speak to the masses of the healing temples and all that they were about, to aid them in their remembering of light. Aphrodite will speak to me of the temples of healing that she helped to establish in the beginning. So this is prior to the deluge, the fall of Atlantis, all of that, and then again after. She spoke and she was guided. She was of the land of the blue star, the star Sirius. So I think we've spoken about Sirius before, that many masters are from Sirius, that Mary Magdalene speaks of being from Sirius, or I mean, really, they're from farther beyond our star systems, but that Sirius was a place of the master realms, and that they went to Venus to establish centers to like a training center is what they describe it to me. So, and she emanated, and yes, she was of the land of the blue star, the star Sirius, and emanated from this, a blue light emanated from this star system as well. She lived and dwelled amongst us and aided in restoring the temples of light at the time of the deluge. She carries within her the light of the blue star. She is of the lineage of the ancient ones, come to the earth to restore humanity to its rightful inheritance. And then they go on, just what I said. The land of Venus was a place of study and preparation, where many from far star systems gathered. The temples of light were established here in preparation for the work to come. And it is from this place that the indigenous tribe received their teachings of love and connections to the earth. The land of the blue rose, it is the temple space of the land of Venus. From it, many have entered the earth to restore order. The Aphrodite one came to join in the dance of life, to bring joy and passion through the rising up process of the body of light. She sang and danced upon the mountaintops and gathered many together to draw forth the light of the earth, the Kundalini rising up as the new earth was restored. This lineage of light beings carried the coding of the earth's new grid system, a system of light that would allow the earth to rise to an age of wisdom and love. And she says now to each of us, we turn to you now to aid us in this rising up process. She establishes the new order and prepares you as you begin. The land of Aphrodite is upon you now. Receive her into your heart and allow the dance of the new to restore order to the chaos, to bring online the new earth, to bring forth the age of wisdom and knowing. And she says, this is the work to which you have been called. Allow now the conch shell to enter you, the Fibonacci sequence of life, the spiral light. This is the dance. This is the rising up process. Begin again and rejoice as the new life has begun. So I just want to give you each a minute just to sit with that. And I don't know if it's what you expected or if it's, some of it might be you already knew. And you've already dismissed the Aphrodite that's in the books. So whatever name we give her, you know, she was of the ancients. And as Andrea said, you know, they came to help and to, I mean, some of them didn't. That's a whole other book. But she came to help to establish temples of light and to help in this spiral, the new sequence. It's the DNA, you know, the coding, the DNA that we all now carry. So this is how I know Aphrodite, and this is her connection to the blue rose. She is this lineage that is the mother, as mother. Later in the chapter, I don't even know if it's in that chapter, but I'll just, you know, since we're speaking of the blue rose, that's Aphrodite who comes to Mary Magdalene and places the blue rose in her hand, and continues, the lineages. And even though Mary Magdalene already carried it, it's an activation or a calling to the work. So it's the connection to Venus. That's, I have all these, you can't really see it, but I have from Etsy, like this tapestry. It has the Star of Venus, the five petaled, they spoke to me of the five petaled rose. I know we talked about the Star of Ishtar, the 8-pointed star, but the five petaled rose, which is the pattern, right, of what Venus creates in the sky. And it's a symbolic and connected to our hearts as the mother. And the blue, the indigo, she talks about the blue star, but also the indigo blue light, the wisdom, the inner knowing. So I've asked her numerous times, in a very 3D way. So why are we called the blue rose? But it's blue. It's connected to Sirius. It's the blue ray is not necessarily the indigo, but there's the spectrum of blue, right? And the indigo is the wisdom, and of course we know the rose. The rose is the heart, and our connection with Venus. So so we still have time. So first, I just want to ask who has things to share or questions. Maybe we can go a little further today.
I have a question.
Okay.
Pretty much to everybody. I mean, I've been feeling like the light is coming in, and I think the old me would have thought, oh, this is going to be so beautiful. The light is coming in. But what's happening is I feel like I'm a human washing machine. And there's just so much stuff that, and maybe it's, this cycle, because I'm seeing like the Fibonacci, is that what it's called? The Fibonacci thing, where it's kind of cleaning out stuff in me. And that's where the feeling of a washing machine is taking place. But like, I'm not sleeping, eating is difficult. I don't know if anybody else is experiencing that.
Yeah. Anybody else want to speak to it?
I understand what you're saying, Andrea. It's interesting because I can definitely channel high frequencies, and I haven't felt them personally come in for like a month. Like we had a day, I think it was like a month ago, where it's like the bliss energies, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. And I was like dancing around and I felt so connected to the angelic realm. And I agree with you, lately, it's just been, I feel very disconnected from those high frequencies. And it's sort of like I got like this image of being like, like a French press, the coffee, and like you press down and like you're in, it's like I feel like or at least I'm in this sort of murky, like clearing phase of like purging. And yeah, it gets challenging because right, like everyone's saying, oh, the light's coming, and you're just kind of like in this muck, and you're like, well, I know it's coming, but right now I don't really feel it.
Right. Exactly.
So I just wanted to share that in case anybody else is feeling that way.
Well, it's nice. I mean, I'm not glad that you're going through this as well, but I'm glad that I'm not the only one.
Go ahead, Jen. I can hear you. Yep. Or I can't hear you, but I see you. Are you maybe you're muted?
Oh, if I can speak something, maybe I'm Limor. I have my, can you hear me? I have
Yes.
okay, I have my camera off. I am in the middle of some intensive treatments, but I was so happy about the topic that was being discussed today that I really wanted to join you live. I'm very touched about this all. And I think maybe what can be interesting to say is that Demeter her story with Persephone, her daughter, actually. So Demeter is the mother, and Persephone is her daughter, and she makes this descent into the underworld, and there she marries with I don't know
Hades?
what is the name.
Oh,
Yeah.
except, yeah.
So and that resembles actually all those goddesses, these Venus goddesses, like also Inanna with her descent into the underworld. They all mirror actually Venus, her cycle. Like every every petal of these 5 pointed rows
Mhm.
has like half of the time is ascent and half of the time is a descent of Venus. So all these stories of these goddesses with their descent into their underworld and then the ascent out of the underworld are actually mirrors of Venus herself, actually, what she does in the sky, in the cosmos. Yeah. And so I find it very fascinating also because of these double-edged qualities related to these goddesses. And and it's maybe also interesting that I recently also read that the on Crete you have this Mycenaean culture, that was a very feminine oriented culture, and they have this goddess, this snake goddess.
Mm.
And apparently, she is related also to um, um, Shadana, like the Hebrew. We talked about this
Oh,
Hebrew
Shekinah. Yeah.
origin. Yes, the original Hebrew goddess, which also somehow relates then to the Queen of Sheba again. We kind of found this kind of connection. And apparently there is this connection also with this snake goddess, this Mycenaean snake goddess of Crete,
Mhm.
this culture. So yeah, I find it all quite fascinating.
Yeah. Oh,
All
thank
these.
you so much for sharing all that, because yeah, I know I found the snake goddess too, but I kept asking, they weren't giving me more information, but I just kept feeling, it's the Kundalini, of course, it's the spiral, the snake goddess, they're all connected. But thank you also for the comment you made about Venus as a morning star, right? And the evening star.
Exactly.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. So it is this, in total, it's this 8 years. And in this 8 years, she goes through these 5 petals, and each petal has this descent and this ascent.
Mm.
And yeah, and I totally can feel you with the connection and past life connection of this Turkey area. I myself have had quite worked on lives around Ephesus and the priestesses there. Yeah, so it's really feels
Yeah.
very close
Yes.
close by.
Connected to that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Let me think, is there something that was more?
Beautiful.
No, I think for now that is
That's
enough. Yeah. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Jen, can you speak now or no? We can't hear you. No. I don't know. I don't know how to unmute. You don't look like you're muted. I'll let Anne go and see if you can. Go ahead, Anne.
Hi, Mary. You mentioned the importance of past life clearings. Do you think we should get past life clearings? Do you think it's a good idea?
I think as you're guided, for me, it has all happened very synchronistically. Like those clearings just happened naturally for me in my own meditation, my own, I was doing crystal bowls, and they were very spontaneous. But I mean, yes, in a word, yes, it's important. It's not just something you need to do. It's happening. It has to happen as you wake up. It has to, as you ascend, you have to release these old. And I think did you do the self-study with me, Anne? You did that, right? We did
Yes, yes.
astral clearing and past life clearing from that work. So Yeah, as you feel guided, usually if there's somebody you're supposed to work with, they'll show up, or,
Wow.
for me personally, as I do my own inner work, my meditation, almost, I wouldn't say daily, but weekly or monthly, there's something that's clearing, whether
Wow.
it's quick or or slow, it happens. So,
Wonderful. Thank you so much. It's so fascinating. I love it.
yeah,
Thank you, Mary.
you're welcome. Okay, go ahead. Anybody, Linda?
Yeah, what I'm going to say is it's confusing, and yet I wonder if anyone else has much more knowledge. I'm sure you all do have much more knowledge about this than I do. I'm constantly fascinated by going all the way back to whatever we can find about the first creatures who came to the planet. And in chapter 6, you say, quote, "We shared knowledge." This is Jesus and Mary Magdalene. "We shared knowledge as each of us had entered into the teachings of the ancient mysteries."
Mm.
And, it's always attempting to go back. And from what I've read, and please help me, the first here, the Atlantans, were the Lyrans, and the Lyrans were incredibly knowledgeable and had 12 strands of DNA. And the Syrians who came were very, very knowledgeable as well. And they wanted to know all of the DNA constructions that the Lyrans knew and understood. And both would mix with the native folk, humans, who then became far more enabled by their new codings and their new DNA structures, as gifted by these extraterrestrial beings. And I think that when we, so maybe I'm talking way out of bounds here and freaking everybody out. But when we,
I think I already started us in that direction. So you're fine.
I just get so fascinated by it, because when we talk about the goddesses and Blessed Mary Magdalene and Blessed Mother Mary and the mystery of their grace and their power, I always, I too have been having this very low time, this very so it was very comforting to hear that other people may be experiencing this as well, as things are sort of coming out and revealed through dreams and so forth. A lot of violence, a lot of, whatever, doesn't matter. That's just me. But it's comforting to hear other people are sort of experiencing this progression as not necessarily just being a feeling that the vibration level is so high, but that, hey, wait a minute, do I belong here? Is this something that, what's going on? And it's very comforting to hear that Aphrodite, in cycling through, would go down and up, and that's all. I just wanted to sort of bring up all that.
Yeah, no, I know there's so much. Yeah, I'm always researching, and I research, and then I just pull away and I just listen, to receive, to have clarity, and to just receive what is my own truth, but yeah, it's fascinating. And they studied, they knew so much, and we have this, at least for me, I still have this Mother Mary and Mary Magdalene. They knew they were from the stars, they knew all of this. So yeah, go ahead. What was it, Monica? I saw.
Yeah, I feel also with the confusion, my gosh, I mean, it's like, whoa, I can't even follow. But I think on a maybe telepathic level or subconscious level, I understand what I need to understand. I hope so, because I feel on my, just my mind is like, I don't know how to follow. It's confusing to me. I mean, I think it's a huge mind opener. I love it. But I hope that, yeah, and also I think the way Mary Magdalene talks sometimes, it's a bit cryptic. And maybe it is that way because we understand it on a deeper level.
Mhm.
And then little by little, maybe we get we all of a sudden can, understand it with our mind, or just, emotional, say, oh wow, so that's what I'm thinking.
Yeah. It's, and she'll say that to me, we don't need to understand it intellectually. It's new states of consciousness. Yeah. So how she speaks, and, for me, and I know she channels through others, it is very, esoteric. She has, what does she call it? Her, just her way of speaking, but she's like, she's planting the seeds, that's why she says the book was light encoded. It's planting seeds. So you're feeling the energy, it's expansion, it's awakening your memories of who you are, your role to play. But yeah, not, we don't have to understand all of it intellectually at all, it's a shift in consciousness, so awakening. Anybody else want to say anything? Go ahead,
Hi,
Amber.
Mary.
Hi.
Hi, it's Amber here. Yeah, you mentioned about going to Athens, and 7, 8 years ago, my family and I went to the Acropolis, and everyone's seen the photos of the huge rectangular shaped, with the huge columns, the temple there. And we couldn't go inside because they're renovating and restoring it and everything, but you could walk around it, and right next to the big one that everyone knows, there was a smaller temple that was also being renovated. And I said to my husband, oh my God, that's it, that's the healing temple where I was, where all of us women were. And on the outside of the sort of columns are these beautiful carved figurines and statues of women with, fabulous, glorious breasts and, all the rest of it. And you couldn't go in, like I said, but I just had this sense that inside and underneath that is where all the caves are.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yes.
yeah, and there was another area where the toilets, and there was like bathing area that, and I just knew that this was, such an incredible healing site, and it was also, healing as in physical, ailments and everything, but it was also linked with sexuality, and the exploration of sexuality, and helping to heal men and women, through the lovemaking practices that went on then. So
yeah. You had a sense of that, or they were taught?
no, that was just my sense.
Yes.
Because these statues were very beautiful, and there was a sexual energy to them.
Yeah. Well, like the sacred marriage, all of that, all of that's been taken from us, but it's waking up for us. I just had a memory of early on when I was already doing this work, but it was before I began to channel for Mary Magdalene. I went to Mount Shasta and was with my friend Nancy. She's on here today, and a couple of friends, and we decided to go. We wanted to go to a cave. We found this company that would take us to a cave, and I was never really thinking that a cave would be a hole in the ground, but they took us to this remote area, and we went into this cave, and we had to climb down, and there was lakes, like frozen lakes down there, and tunnels. And the man who was with us, he said, oh, I call this the mouth and then the throat. We had to shimmy through this very narrow area and finally go into this opening that was a cave. We were pretty far down into the earth. And then he turned the lights off, and we said, can we meditate? And so we did. And that's the first time I heard Gaia, as she said, feel my pulsations, feel my pulses, feel the and then she began to move in me, and all of that, so I have always, so now it's always about, of course, Mary Magdalene slept in caves and went that route to Crete, and of course, that was what the priestesses, they all want to be connected with Gaia, the earth, the kundalini of the earth, and the sexual, the sacred sexual. So yeah, it's beautiful, and it disturbs me really when I see Aphrodite now as she's when I have to look for candles or whatever, and I find these very, I don't know, it's not who she is, it's been distorted, but this is her truth, and this is why she's so important in connection with the Order of the Blue Rose. These are the connections with Mary Magdalene and all those priestesses then and now. So I'm going to just listen and see, it's just about an hour. I'm going to see if there's something else she wants me to share, because I feel like this is a good place to break, because when she goes and she meets Jesus and Yeshua and all of that, that's just so important, and I don't want to rush through it at all. So let me just listen for a minute and see where she wants me to end this. Okay, she wants me to do she wants to transmit a brief blessing, a blessing for each of you to help, she says, to help calm us. She's been telling me we're recycling you. We're going through the recycling. That's what she keeps calling it. So let me just, hopefully everybody has a quiet place that they can just receive this blessing. I am present. It is the nighttime hours that are upon each of you. Fear of the unknown, the uncertainty of the path. This day I enlighten you. I unburden you. I gather you up. As you come to know and to see, to be, to receive. It is all that is required. Each of you here has been heaven sent. You have agreed to the terms established within you. In this moment in time, I give you rest. As there are deep disturbances that occur within, it is the cellular demise. As the new contract enters, as the rebirth occurs. Receive me now. You are encoded. And you give birth to much. Receive. Anchor. Know of your angelic form as a being of light. You are called forth. Know this as you rise up. As you awaken. As you forgive and release. The odor of the blue rose is upon you. It enters your bloodstream. You carry the blue star within your hearts. This day I reinvigorate you. Hold tight to my hand. I am present to you. Together we walk upon the path. As it spirals within you. Fear it not, as it enlivens you, and it draws you forward into the new. Allow now the land of Aphrodite to be anchored in within you, the land of the blue rose. As we restore order here, as we anchor in the love, as we draw forth the wisdom, as we attenuate to the higher frequencies of love, of light, of being. All is well. Move into the quiet mind this day and receive, and know that I am with you. All is complete. So I thank you all. We're all so blessed to have found each other. And thank you for being here, and to all of you who are going to be watching the recording. And I will send out the next month. We'll continue chapter 6 and the story of Mary Magdalene and Yeshua and their journey. Have a beautiful, beautiful day. If any of you don't know, next week I'm doing this spring equinox transmission. I don't know who's coming through or who's going to be, but I'd love for each of you to join me if or hear the recording. It's on the Facebook page and my website. All right. I love you all. Have a wonderful, beautiful day.